We're back with the roots of Black radicalism, part 2, chapter 6, the historical archaeology of the Black radical tradition. In the last part, Africa, revolt at the source. In Africa itself, the same historical tradition was no less apparent in the 19th century. But we must also keep in mind the warning issued by C.L.R. James and George Padmore that it was the colonial habit not to maintain a very close record of these events. The difficulty. Do I have a Valley Girl accent? I feel like sometimes you could hear it. Like I'll be like, so and like, girl. That has literally the amount of times I say so and like and so and like and oh, I also had a little. Oh, wait, never mind. The difficulty is to get accounts written in any detail. The British send out their punitive expeditions against revolting tribes and do not necessarily mention them in the annual colonial reports. But if the revolt awakens public interest, a commission will investigate and make a report. The report will frequently clash violently with the accounts of participants, eyewitnesses, correspondents of newspapers, native and European, and persons living in the colony at the time. Right. Like, it's like they don't want to give that up because it still goes on today. The French and the Belgians, however, published little of this kind. Ooh. One of the several consequences of this habit and the intent behind it is to produce a companion academic literature that acted, as B. Magubain asserts, as a powerful mystification of the real social forces at work. Importante. I have it in green, but that's really important. Like, even right now, think about with what's going on in Palestine and how the words that are being used and deployed. First of all, racist as fuck. Ooh. As heck. And Islamophobic. And like, if you hear the thugs and this and that, it's like, hold up. And how they weaponize racism in this. My sister don't know how to wash lettuce. Anyways, no image. But yeah, no image of the colonial social structure emerged in the literature, Magubain maintains. Lucy Mayer, speaking on behalf of her anthropologist colleagues who mined the British colonial fields, thought the reason. Let me put this on. Do not. Sorry. Speaking on behalf of her anthropologist colleagues who mined the British colonial fields, thought the reason quite obvious. I think one has the answer to comment that we concentrated on the village or the people and took for granted the external sources of the changes that we documented. I think the reason is simple, that one cannot do both at once. However, she also admitted none of us, it is true, held that colonial rule ought to come to an immediate end. Who did those days? For Mayor, the hub of the district commissioner's job was securing the adequate labor supply for European employers and preservation of peace. And that reminds me of this Kwame Ture thing. There's no peace and liberation do not coexist together. Is that what he said? Let's look it up. There is a difference between peace and liberation. Peace isn't the answer, liberation is. Go Kwame, go Kwame. The preservation of peace, lest it be thought that the preservation of peace means the suppression of rebellion. It was much more concerned with the assaults of Africans on one another. Interesting. Such scholars as Mayer, to generalize Magubain's observation, were hardly possessed with the mindset to see colonialism as a force and a social process rather than a given, as an existential reality of the landscape. Think about that. Okay, think about how European people Western people, Euro-American people are more likely to be like, oh, imperialism, it's normal. What do you mean? What do you mean? Rather, compared to oppressed or marginalized people are like, colonialism, no, that's not normal. If anything, that's abnormal. That's weird, actually. It's kind of deranged, really. What do you mean colonialism good? Ho, is you cool? Right. Versus, right, okay. That's what that's saying. Right. The European presence in Africa at the beginning of the century had been largely confined to a few settlements in southern Africa and to trading posts and factors on the northern, western, and eastern coasts. Even by the mid-century, James and Padmore asserts it is unlikely that more than 1/10 of Africa was in European hands. Nevertheless, the century had opened with resistance. Right. In southern Africa, okay, I don't know how to pronounce this one. Xhosas? Don't make fun of me. In southern Africa, it's Xhosas. Maybe it's Zoxa, but then the S possessive. 100 Years' War in 1779 through 1880, which with the white colonists was already into its third decade. Before its obvious impermanent conclusion, it would take this people deeply into the historical tradition as any black people, even the Haitians, had dared. The non-Kwase, Nongquase, or cattle killing of 1856 to 1857, which resulted in the deaths of tens of thousands of Xhosas, Xhosas, by self-inflicted starvation continues to evade Western comprehension. They can't even understand why people don't even want to be enslaved. They're like, but this is normal. And people are like, no, it's not, and I'd rather self-emancipate. Right. Okay. The Zulu too came to the point of military resistance. From the emergence of the Zulu state in the early decades of the century to the wars of the 1870s and 1900s, the Zulu fought the disruption of their material and spiritual beings. Eat it up. 8,000 Zulu fell in the Battle of 1879 alone. The same year, I say, guys, I'm trying. ASS, please excuse me if I'm wrong. That I'm wrong. ASSEGAIS defeated the gun in the terrible encounter at Ishandlwana. That kind of sounds right. ISANDHLWANA. 30 years later, as the new century opened, the Zulu rose up once again. As the century progressed, the European intrusions became more marked and resistances more numerous. In Angola, the Portuguese fought wars of pacification in the 1850s and the 1880s. In present-day Tanzania, the Yao and Hehe, Hehe, in the 1830s confronted the Germans who transgressed the bounds of good manners. Machemba, Machemba, the Yao general, had written to them in Swahili, "If it should be friendship that you desire, then I am ready for it, today and always. But to be your subject, that I cannot be." In the 1780s in West Africa, the Ashanti began their wars with the British. In the 1890s, the Mendi of Sierra Leone did the same. And in 1896, as a complement to the achievement of the Haitian slaves 100 years earlier, Menelik II of Ethiopia mounted an army of 100,000 in order to defeat the Italian invader. They were, of course, many others, the Yoruba of West Africa, the Baganda of East Africa, the peoples of the Atlas Mountains in the north, the Shinoa, Shona, I'm not gonna. Nedebele. That's one. That's another one. NDL. Wait. Nindlambe. Nindlambe. NDLAMBE. And Ninquika. NGQIKA of the South. Those are some cool names. Anyways. Many of them had to wait a long time for their celebration. Many are still waiting. It was, though, the pattern, the construction, the evolving form that was and is most interesting. The historical integration that the slave trade had accomplished almost instantaneously in the New World was now occurring on the African continent. That's that like wraparound in terms of the Black radical tradition, how it's an innate, like an inherently African response that grounds the Black radicalism, and then it's showing that connection to what was happening in Africa. Discrete societies were slowly achieving the social organization that the attack on colonialism required. Terence Ranger, though not entirely comfortable with the super-rational elements to which we have attended, thought such movements eminently utilitarian. The resistances were a defiance of power which enjoyed great technological superiority and began with the superiority of morale based upon it and upon confidence in its ability to shape the world. The religious leaders were able to oppose to this a morale which for the moment was as confident, if not more so, based upon their supposed ability to shape the world, and they were able to oppose to modern weapons the one great advantage that the Africans possessed, that of numbers. In no other way could the African peoples of the late 19th and early 20th centuries have offered a challenge to the Europeans. Moreover, the so-called superstitions, injunctions of the religious leaders not only served the purpose of creating a sense of a new society, but also ensured the minimum of discipline essential in movements such as these. This achievement as a structural phenomenon was a concatenant of the world system and the imperialist expansion that it demanded. Its coherence, however, was based upon the African identities of these peoples. As a structural process, its dynamics were seated in the very expansion of imperialism. This was the dialectic of imperialism and liberation. The contradiction that compelled the appearance of resistance and revolution out of the conditions of oppression, even from its ideology. As Michael Taussig had written, with early colonial Colombia in mind, the scanty accounts of Christianization suggests that conversion and consolidation of belief remained little more than a formality through the entire epoch of slavery. Indeed, the slave owners regarded Christianized slaves to be more rebellious. Ooh, girl, David Walker, he was like, no, they ain't real Christians. I think we talked about this. He was like, no, if we all God's children, we are all free. I don't know what y'all got going on, but babe, wrap it up immediately. It was fun. Anyways, generally speaking, but he uses Christianity. It's really cool. We're as more rebellious and as poorer workers than those not indoctrinated and would pay less for them. Black popular Black popular religion could hardly endorse slavery and all it implied, nor could the slaves remain content with equality in God's eyes, but not in their own. The peoples of Africa and the African diaspora had endured an integrating experience that left them not only with a common task, but a shared vision. Go black people, go black people. And that is the end of chapter 6. And then we're now going to chapter 7. And it's so short, girl. I might record it right now. So, bye. Thanks for listening.